So this is supposed to be the COP of truth. That is what Lula, the president of Brazil, said yesterday. And I really like that because we need the facts and the truth in order to solve the climate crisis. And I will have some proofs and facts here that Lula and other leaders can't ignore. This is a graph how Brazil performing on climate, how the government here are forming. It's doing great on stopping deforestation. That curve goes down. That's very good. We need it to go down to zero. But it's financed by pumping more and more oil. In fact, 2 weeks before this meeting, the government of Brazil approved more oil drilling in the rainforest. That's not climate leadership. That's something completely else. And also very, very good that this is the first COP meeting where the presidency, the host of the COP, working together with scientists to guide our path towards this whole meeting so that we make the right decision. And I really hope that Brazil is not only talking about others to change, but they're also needing to apply those changes themselves. It's not about the talk, it's all about action. And the Planetary Science Pavilion that we are working with and the COP presidency also are working together with, according to the lead scientist, Johan Rockström, he published yesterday what's needed to be done. And number one, get serious about phasing out fossil fuels by 2050. That's what we need to do. And approving new oil drilling before a meeting like this is maybe not the way to start doing it. But I don't care about the start. I care about the end of this meeting. So let's hope for a better end when start. Many people, they said, yeah, but we can't afford to change. We can't afford the green transition because it's so expensive to go off oil. We need the money. We actually need to drill more oil in order to finance our whole society. But what they don't take in consideration, I mean, of course, it's going to cost money to transform our society. We need a lot of money. We need finance, and that's one of the topics of this thing. But what they don't mention, those saying, is that if we don't do anything, the cost will be extremely higher. So we have no choice. Either we pay small to fix the climate crisis, or we pay for the consequences, like the big hurricane in Southern just days ago. And according to leading insurance industry, we're risking 50% GDP loss if we don't change course. So we need to do this. And the positive news, most people on the planet, they agree on this. They won't change. In fact, there is new studies saying that 89% of all the people want stronger climate action. They support stronger action from the governments. So why are we not doing it? Because there is some special interest to try to resist those changes because they feel that they are losing efficiency. And they have enormous amount of power, money, and they try and have tried for many, many years to deny some change. Get people to believe that this is a big scam, like Donald Trump said in the UN General Assembly. But this is 2025, and it doesn't work. I mean, people know that the climate is changing because they can just go outside and the weather's weird and things are not normal. So those special interests, they have moved on. And now they are pushing that, yeah, we know climate changing, but can change small, we can change slow, we can change when I'm dead. There's a lot of billionaires pushing for delay. But it doesn't stop there. The new playbook is that they are trying to cancel scientists because it's very hard to delay change. That means that you need to delay new technology, and that's our winning strategy. So now try to delay, to cancel science itself. And I have a short quote of the Vice President of the United States talking about what he thinks of science.
To honestly and aggressively attack the universities in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, the universities do not pursue knowledge and truth. They pursue deceit and lies, and it's time to be honest about that fact. And there was a wisdom in what Richard Nixon said. He said, and I quote, "The professors are the enemy."
Science is what's building our society. Unfortunately, this is not just watch. It's happening all over that special interests are trying to stop science, stop facts. This is an example. What you see here is the Mauna Loa Observatório on Hawaii. It has measuring carbon dioxide since the 1960s, and it's going up, 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 and up. So this is really why we know that we are pumping so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It was record high this year. So what are the US administration doing about it? They try to cancel and shut down that observatory so we don't have the data. Because if we don't have the data, we don't have evidence of climate change. And it's not stopping there. Just a couple of months ago, White House sent a memo to NASA and asked them to burn up and shut down two of the most advanced carbon dioxide measuring instrument in space we have, because the same reason. The data is dangerous for those that don't want to change. And it's not just the United States. This is spreading all over. This is Germany. One of the big parties in Germany wants to cancel and destroy all wind power. In UK, the Conservative Party wants to cancel the climate targets. And in the United States, there's an organization called Concerned Scientists, and we have them on the show later. They have calculated that only this year there have been 402 attacks to science already. So this is really serious. And why is this happening? I mean, the leaders become crazy. No, they have not. They are just afraid of losing. The first time this year, clean energy, renewables have gone past coal, oil, and gas, and all other energy sources. So fossil fuel are losing market share, and clean energy are winning. So those on the fossil fuel side, they are really scared, and they try to delay change. And in US, for example, 96% of all new electricity built last year were free. And you have all those crazy curves, scaling exponentially, EV, batteries, solar. And it's quite hard to understand the pace of change on exponential, because first it goes very slow. You don't really see it. So you have a better way to describe it. And this is a way to describe it in time. How long it takes to install 1 gigawatt of solar power capacity each year. In 2004, it took a year. In 2010, it took a month. In 2015, it just over a week. In 2023, it took a day. And last year, it took less than an hour. This is the speed of change. And the good thing with this speed, that is also affecting the emissions. So in Europe, for example, in 2023, the emissions were down 8%. This was after the pandemic. So industry was starting and emissions were going down. In China, this year, for the first time, their emissions have started to flat out. Economy are growing, but their emissions are flattening out. So we see progress here. The problem, it's not enough progress, because according to science, we need to cut emission in half every decade. And we are now mid-decade, and we're kind of flattening out. That's a speed that's not good enough. So we need to speed it up. And here's the thing. I'm totally convinced that this curve is absolutely possible. But we need to do one thing. We need to remove the special interests that are working against change, that are trying to slow down and stop the change. So that's what we need to do. And in order to do that, we need people to know what's going on. And that's where we, as the world's largest media for climate action, plays a role. When started, one thing we are proud of is that we helped Greta Thunberg's message spread throughout the world. But today, we don't need to help Greta Thunberg. We need to help scientists instead. So that's why I'm standing here in a cap at COP30 saying, make science great again. And what we mean with it is that we want to help science by defend science wherever it's under attack. We need to tell the stories, because if we tell it before it's too late, we can stop it. The observatory in Mauna Loa is still not yet closed. Let millions of people know that that's a risk, for example. It's not only about defending, it's also about amplifying all the science we have. Make people see what cool things we can build with science. And lastly, those are difficult questions, like I had in the beginning. It's not always that people are doing right, doing wrong, people are bad, people are nice. They can be both. And we need to have dialogues about that. And that's why I'm so glad that this COP is a COP in a democracy where we can have those discussions freely. We don't need to agree, but let's have a dialogue about it. And if you want to help us, if you want to support this, you can donate money to our campaign, and you can go and collect or make Science Great Again cap. This is the COP version. We have other COPs. You will find it on the link on the screen. And very proudly, because when enough people see that we own this narrative, not others, this is not against anyone. This is true science. Can't take it for granted. Science has always been great, but if it's not respected, it's not great in society. So we need to make science great where it matters at COP meetings like this. And we are now here to spread this message. And those caps are now spreading throughout COP. We will see that through those broadcasts we're doing. And we have a challenge that have been inspired by the bucket challenge, where people are wearing those caps, standing up for science, and they are paying it forward. And here you can see how this movement has started in Stockholm, Sweden, and now we're going about the whole world, wherever you are, in Europe, Africa, North America, South America, Australia, Asia. We need science everywhere. Science is great. Help us protect it and support it. I think we have a video to show what I mean.
There's some beauty and adventure in exploring science, learning from nature, learning from science, and adapting our way of doing business, technologies and everything else today to save tomorrow. And then there's a threat against science. I would never have dreamed of it, but nowadays it's also a rebellious act to be for science, it seems like, which is weird, but important then to join the movement.
Well, from here, then we move to the one man, right?
Fight for how we see reality. Are we going to deny facts, science, to create, imagine something that is not real?
There are so many places in the world right now where you can't speak up for science. So I believe that we need to listen to science, but we also need to stand up for it as a person, as a company, and that's why I'm gonna wear this hat.
Science is full of facts, and we have to listen to the facts.
It awakens your inner Trump. Fucking get it done now. Make it great. I know it's great.
Scientific understanding underpins everything. We need to be able to manage by facts. We need to know what the problem is. We need to know what the solutions are. And without scientific understanding, we have nothing.
Well, it's a good idea because science is truth. It's that simple.
Provocation.
If you love nature and snow and want the glaciers to thrive, so make science great again. Believe in science, support science.
I want to put out the reminder of keeping science alive, particularly the climate change related topics. Make science great again.
This opening show live from Belém in Brazil at COP30. And they're going to help us maybe explore a little bit some of the issues that are on the table of this climate conference here in Brazil. I have the pleasure of introducing Sandrine Dixson-Declève, who is probably no stranger to our audiences. She's now executive chair for all and honorary president of the Club of Rome. That sounds quite special. There's honorary presidents of the club.
I know it does.
I know. We'll have to work on that one. Then we've got Claudio Angelo. He's head of international policy at Observatório Clima. Here in Brazil, and that's like 130 NGOs, I think, in
162.
Oh my God, it's owned since I looked. Incredible. Okay, and we got Isobel Bruce. She's global head of campaigns at Purse, and we'll come to what it is when we turn to Isobel. But great to have you here. And we've got Daniela Chiaretti, and she's a senior. It's the senior environmental journalist, not just one of them. You haven't 50, have you, or Economico? She's the senior environmental journalist with Brazil's Financial Daily, Valor Econômico. For those of you that don't know Brazil, this is like the Financial Times of Brazil. And we have Ingmar Rentzhog joining us, the CEO and founder of We Don't Have Time. And by the magic of Zoom, all the way from London. It doesn't look like you're in London, by the way, Richard. Looks like you could even be in Brazil, or maybe Kenya. It's Richard Folland. He's head of policy and engagement at Carbon Tracker. And can you hear us, Richard? Yes, okay. We're going to turn you up very shortly as well, so we can hear what you're saying. Okay, super. Let's go to Sandrine. Let's start with you, Sandrine. You're a COP veteran in some ways, having witnessed firsthand the ups and downs of these negotiations from the past. Can you maybe help us set the stage a little bit from your perspective? What is needed, in your opinion, to make a COP30 here in Brazil a real and tangible success, perhaps like Paris was 10 years ago, and a departure from the baby steps that we've had since Paris? They've been little baby steps. Everybody cheers, but when you really look at it, they're baby steps. And that's not fair on babies, by the way, because we have to look after babies. Sandrine.
Listen, I think that, first of all, we have to remember that this is not the same COP as the Paris COP. Yes, we are a decade from Paris, but this is the implementation COP. So there is a great deal of focus on what implementation actually means. And there has been a lot of work in Rio and in Sao Paulo before coming here. So I just want to say that in Rio, there were more than 100 mayors that came together, and there are many local authorities that have come here to try to bring together actually the local action agenda that will feed into COP30. So I think that is already a success.
Yeah.
And then there was the Finance and Innovation Summit that was held in Sao Paulo last week. So we're coming into this COP with a great deal of commitments already. I think then the other key point here that will make it a success is to make sure that countries come together behind finance commitments. For example, the Baku to Belém roadmap, which is looking at really bringing forward 1.3 trillion into both adaptation and mitigation, and continuing the commitment of the 100 billion. In addition to that, this is really being labeled the COP of truth. And as
COP of truth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's the implementation COP, but Lula has also called it the COP of truth, which is to ensure that we stand by science. It is the first time that we actually have a science pavilion ever, and I'm working and collaborating with the science pavilion. It is the first time that we've actually called for chairs of the countries to be science chairs, to bring forward evidence-based decision-making. I know that at the pre-COP, there has also been many presentations given by top climatologists. So we're coming into this COP with a more of an anchoring on evidence-based decision-making, which I think is fundamental.
Okay.
Also linked to that is a focus on transparency. It is very windy from the fans
very windy.
here.
If people think it's blowing here, it's really blowing.
It's actually very warm, and that's why we've got the fans going crazy. It's a transparency and an anti-disinformation COP.
Yeah.
And I think that, some people may say, well, hold on, that's not a target. But in this day, when we were getting slammed from so many countries, including one that has decided not to come to COP, the United States, it is fundamental that countries are standing behind the climate science and indicating that their decisions will be linked to the climate science. Last point, it is also the adaptation COP. When we see a typhoon in Philippines and we see the amount of destruction that we have seen just this year from weather impacts, we know that this has to be a COP that starts to look at debt swaps, that starts to look at different types of financial instruments that enable us to adapt to the impact of climate change.
Okay, that's good. Let's we've got a little chat afterwards. So, Danny, can I call you Danny?
Yes, please.
Okay. Danny, you're a senior environmental journalist. You've been covering COPs for a long time. You're in Brazil. You're working on Brazil. I know you have a global perspective as well, but you're in Brazil. What is the kind of atmosphere in this country right now on this COP? What are politics saying? I mean, these are big questions, but is there a sense of pride that we're having the COP? And do people care? Do people think it's important? What's your feeling about this? Business, what does business think, maybe?
Well, this is a huge country.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say what people really think about the COP. I think that many Brazilians just don't know what is up. And we had this big discussion to have this COP in Belém. And at the end, we have a lot of problems. But I've heard somebody who told me that it was good to have a COP like that with all the problems in Belém to see what the system produces in a city like this one. So this is a city of a developing country with a lot of inequality. So Rio and Sao Paulo have other realities that this city here. And at the same time, it's the COP of the truth. I'm trying to write about the chaotic moment that we are living, and also the discussions that we have in our country, and also the contradictions that everybody has. And in Brazil, they are very clear. So we have this wonderful forest. We have the wonderful biodiversity. We have a lot of renewable energy, but still we are discussing to drill oil in
the Amazon river system. Yeah.
Yes, in the sea. Yes. And the discussion is a little bit of, but the world developed in this way, and how you can avoid the forest to value more when the forest is in the floor that when she stands. So these kind of things, I think.
Keep in mind, just very nice to your mouth, Dan.
Okay. these kind of things are the discussions that I think we have to bring. And from the perspective of the global south, we have to do all at the same time. So to develop, to adapt, to mitigate, it's a bit a lot. And
you told me yesterday in the conversation, which was really interesting, that Brazil is such a big country. It's a bit like living in the rich world and living in the developing world. In other words, there are parts of Brazil where they probably think, why are we going for oil? That's crazy. We don't need it. But there are poorer parts of Brazil where people say, oh, we need to go for oil because everybody else goes for oil. So what about us? We're poor, right? So it's like a mirror image of the world. Just one second. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is exactly this thing. We are discussing inside of our country, or we have this contradiction inside of our country of the richest part of the country, they developed in the old way. Yes? With cars, with oil, with streets, cutting a lot of our other biomass. And now here, other will find a way of a new development, and this is something that Brazil is also looking for. The TFF, it's a way, and we have to develop this region, maybe looking more to the rivers and not to the roads. And you understand? So
way of development, yes.
A very different way of development. And this is really challenging because it's a challenge for the world.
That idea there. Let's go to Claudio. You represent, as we said, well, now it's 160 plus NGOs. Are there any more left? I mean, have you got all of them now, or?
We're working on that.
And here in Brazil, is there a common view can you unite the NGO civil society movement in a common bunch of asks from this government for COP30? Is that possible?
It is possible. We obviously couldn't boil it down to one ask.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things we want from this COP. One of them, of course, is the implementation of two commitments made, meaning the countries, made Dubai 2 years ago. One of them is to make a just, orderly, and equitable transition away from fossil fuels and energy systems. And the other is to reverse devastation by 2030. Countries signed up to that in Dubai 2 years ago and had buyer's remorse right afterwards. And no one ever wanted to discuss those issues again. We didn't talk about them in Baku as if the fuels were not the cause of climate change, if deforestation wasn't a cause of climate change. And now we need to implement those things because just to, say we will transition and do nothing about it is as good as me saying, hey, Nick, I will stop drinking. Yeah, awesome. And you find me in the bar 2 days afterwards, and you ask,
I have given up cigarettes. I have given cigarettes.
So, where are you going to quit? I never told you when I was going to quit. So we need a timeline.
Yeah.
And no country, except for Brazil and the UK, in their ACs, the targets they submitted last year and this year, no one said how and what they were going to do about fossil fuels. Brazil said we need a calendar, and the UK said something like, oh, we're going to stop pension. And all other countries only said, yes, we will transition at some point. So we need no plan. We need a process coming out of Belém to get us to a plan. This is one big ask, two big asks, of course. This is the adaptation COP, as Sandrine also said. And we need to see a package of adaptation out of Belém. It's a mandated item. We have the global goal adaptation. The negotiations must end next week. Of course, finance for adaptation will be also key. And there is the whole just transition package. Many NGOs around the world, including in our network, want us to leave Belém with a mechanism to coordinate international efforts on just transition. And also underlying whole package of Belém is the issue of finance. and will be the key enabler of anything we do here. We'll get out of here.
Can I just ask one other question, right? Which is just briefly, we'll come back to it, I know, in a minute, but briefly, what do you think was going through Lula's head when, on one side, he was like a hero for stopping the massive deforestation in Brazil under Bolsonaro, and then he turns around just before his own COP and gives the go-ahead on the drill in the Amazon. I mean, it's like, hey, we get it, but science, at the same time, he thinks science is important. I mean, this is from the International Energy Agency, and lots of other people say actually it was about 2022 that said you can't have any more new oil or Paris is screwed, right? So what went through his head, Claudia? And we'll come back on this. Dan might want to answer that afterwards. But
we could talk about this forever, but we don't have time.
No,
so I think it's a bit is politics. Part of it is a true belief by the president that, and you have to remember, Lula is trade union leader, and from a very different time.
Yeah.
So he's convinced that there are good jobs on oil and gas, and there is development to be
We're going to come on this, Sandrine. I want to go to Isabel first, and Ingmar, we've got lots of time. We still got like 23 minutes. So I'm managing this in a very, very good way to get us all back round to some of these topics. Isabel, this is very interesting. We touched on it earlier. You're with Purpose, and it's a very creative organization. You're a publicly focused storytelling,
movement building.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And when you found it, who founded it? Sorry,
Jeremy Hymans, our founder, who he comes from an activist background. He founded it in New York about 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very creative indeed. And you've teamed up with the UN and the COP30 presidency to deal with climate disinformation. And I suppose the first question is, why do we need this campaign? And I think I know the answer, but tell us in your own words, why do we need right now, at this moment, a campaign on something that has been accompanying the climate story for a long time? What's special now?
Well, I think, it leads back to the COP of Truth question. And one of the things that the Brazilian government has actually launched this year for the first time is the Global Hub for Information Integrity and Climate Change Communications, which is a mouthful. But they have information integrity on the agenda for the very first time.
Right.
And that's in recognition of the fact that there is a vast amount of disinformation in the ecosystem, widely funded by fossil fuel actors. And at the moment, we are losing that critical volume race. We have a lot of initiatives of people trying to get good information, scientific information, making science great again out into the ecosystem. But right now, I think what's happening is there's a bit of a disconnect. So obviously, as we've sort of touched on here, there's a lot of things happening at this very high multilateral level. And it's very hard to get the general population to trust that things are going to happen, to really understand what things need to happen, like what the solutions really are, and then also to demand action. And I think that in order to get to that point where people are really able to demand that critical action from their local decision makers, from their federal decision makers, we need better literacy across the populations in all countries around the world. And I think that one of the things that we do is we use trusted messengers. So how do we bring different people into the conversation to talk about scientific accuracy, but in a way that people are able to receive it? How do we engage with something like COP? We have 24, 25 trusted messengers on the ground at this COP right now, trying to have conversations and report on things to their audiences that may not have any understanding or interaction with something like a COP at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really critically important that we get this right. Because yes, it's great that we can have these conversations at a multilateral level within the sector, within business, within finance critically as well. But we need the population to make it undeniable for countries to move away from fossil fuels because it's simply too unpopular for capitalism.
Yeah. And you've got 10 TikTokers here
25.
It's like Claudio with his NGOs. He started off with 130, now he's got 160. So you've got like double now the TikTokers you had before you arrived, and they're all working to deal with this this question of disinformation through the lens of TikTok, right? Okay, how do you make sure that they spot disinformation themselves?
Well, so here's something quite interesting. In the first year that we launched the campaign, we're in our third year. It's called Verified for Climate, by the way, the campaign, as mentioned. Verified for Climate. And it's in collaboration with the UN Department for Global Communications. We took the fight around misinformation very directly. So what we did was we had our messengers basically from people on TikTok to be able to see disinformation and report it to the platform. And we saw enormous uptake from the platform in terms of the volume of people. It went month 100% month, the volume of people reporting mis and disinformation on the platform. But what we realized wasn't shifting people perceptions, which is what we're really trying to do. What really works actually is developing new narratives. So rather than trying to debunk or mystify or even pre-bunk, we need to find compelling narratives of our own that people really believe in and get behind.
Right.
Narratives that are solutions focused, narratives that actually acknowledge people's livelihoods and lives, and they're being impacted by chain weather, but also by the financial implications. And then also we need to find narratives that give people something to do. I don't know if anyone's heard of the 89% project.
Yes.
So it acknowledges that most people actually think, like overwhelming majority of people actually think that they believe climate solutions. They don't think that neighbor does. They don't think that's
their next door neighbor. Yeah. So hold that thought for a second. But just to say, before we move on to Richard in London, the TikTokers they're not white men from Britain, right?
Absolutely not, no.
They are white men from Britain. That'd be terrible, wouldn't it? If all the talkers were like that, hey, Danny? Indonesia, they're from Brazil,
Yeah, and majority Brazilian. At COP, we have people from indigenous Browns, local communities from Indonesia and the UK. So yeah, it's a diverse group.
All right, let's just say that, by the way, Ingmar, you're going to be the last guest, because I'll do first. So talking about white older men like myself, Richard, we're allowed to still be on the show. So Richard's with Carbon Tracker. And Carbon Tracker is partnered with the Institute of Actuaries in London and Exeter University in the UK to assess the likely costs to the global economy if climate change isn't addressed. And I think we want to remind the audience out there just what is at risk if we don't deal with climate change for everybody. And so can you do that, Richard, with some headline numbers, please? Okay, I can actually hear Richard right now. Is that because we have organized it that way, or is that because... Richard, the audience can hear you, but we can't. But that's okay, so you just carry on. It's all right.
Okay.
I know the numbers anyway, Richard. They're fantastic.
Well, you do. Well, I'll say hello to the audience then, Nick. And as you say, we do work closely with the Institute of Actuaries and the academic experts, the climate scientists at Exeter University. It's now feedbacking on me.
Everything's good, Richard. You just carry on, mate.
Okay, I'll carry on. Oh. And yes, we focus on the impacts of climate risk on financial stability. And what you're referring to, Nick, is a report called Planetary Solvency that the Institute of Actuaries and Exeter published at the start of the year about how the global economy could face 50% loss in GDP, gross domestic product, between 2070 and 2090 from the catastrophic shocks of climate change, unless immediate action is taken by political leaders to decarbonize, to accelerate and to restore nature. Now, I think on that headline number, Nick, that might sound like hyperbole, and that is a worst case scenario. But the point I wanted to make about that report, and this is why government should be taking these warnings seriously, is that the actuaries and Exeter are risk management experts who looked at the science, and they estimated the impacts if global warming were to reach 3 degrees C by 2050, that these impacts, and putting aside what I just said to you about the economic impacts, but the other impacts, they're quite unthinkable in terms of mass mortality, mass human displacement, conflict, state failures, and extinction events. So an extremely serious report that we think the actuaries and experts that government should be taking seriously.
Greenpeace or actuaries are the people that really look at the risk assessment, right, in great detail. These are professional people that we don't normally hear from, and they're saying worst case scenario, 50% GDP loss by mid-century.
That's right. And I think if I got your question, Nick, I mean, actuaries, what are they for the Greenpeaces of this world and so on? They're risk management experts. That's what they are. They rely on data, mathematics, financial theory to analyze risk for businesses and for governments. And key point about the actuaries is that they work at the heart of the financial system. So they work for insurance companies, pension funds, investment banks, and so on. So they're serious people. They're working with governments, policymakers, decision makers in government on climate. And, the point that we would underline here is that because of that, government should be taking this seriously, particularly if they are looking at the impacts of climate change and climate risk on financial stability.
Ingmar, you've listened to some of our guests right now. What are your thoughts about what you've heard?
One thought is that it's that the audience watching this, they don't know that it's 80 decibel in here from the fan of the air condition.
There's 80
so that's it's a challenge to hear everything. But I know, I've read the report and I know exactly everything in it. And my background is from finance industry, and for me it's very bizarre that the industry that is so good at calculating risk doesn't get the climate risk. It's bizarre. Yeah. And I think it has to do with one thing. And I think, Nick, you said it, but you said it backwards. So I'm actually thinking the opposite.
Okay, good.
You said that Brazil is a very, very big country. That's true. And you said that you have rich people and you have poor people, and it's both a developing country and like a very well-developed country.
Of the world, yeah.
Yes. And I see it like this. It's not the poor people that is against oil. It's the rich people. If you look at other countries, who is resisting, who is spending more to dig more oil? It's Norway, one of the richest countries on the earth. It's United States. It's Saudi Arabia. It's not Colombia. That's a poor country. They will have a conference about phasing out fossil fuels. So the problem is, the ones that are making a lot of money from oil, those are resisting change. And it has been extremely easy to get rich of oil. So we need to address that. It's the rich, some, not all rich. I mean, there's a lot of rich people doing the right thing. But if you have a lot of money, it's kind of high probability that some of that money comes from the oil. And that's the big problem. And it's also another problem that is connecting with what you said. And that's disinformation and it's communication. We try our utmost to get out there, but there's really no money in climate communication. That knows everyone in this space. But there's a lot of money in the opposite. Like Bill Gates, he published a letter before this COP meeting saying that climate is just one of 100 problems. Let's focus on all the others and maybe some climate. It's not an urgency. And do you know what? He is a DSMOG article that revealed that Bill Gates had paid $3.5 million to Bjorn Lombard, pushing.
It's been around, yeah.
So you see,
about 12 years old, but he's about 80, I think.
I mean, you see the money flow. It's easy to get money if you're against climate. In Sweden, there's a newspaper called Affärsvärlden. It's a much smaller newspaper than you're running. And they're getting $1 million per year to be critical against the green transition. I mean, that's absurd. They're open with it.
Okay.
So I just want to say
let's tie this together.
Finish line here.
We've got 11 minutes left.
Finish line. Sorry for taking your time. One thing that I feel is really, really scared about the future. It's not that our our opinions and voice and facts are not getting through. It's that the system is rigged, and it has started with social media. I mean, the ones controlling social media control the algorithms. If you do a lot of great stuff on TikTok, if TikTok don't like it, people won't see it. But I mean, that's the rule. But it's now leveling up the game. I was writing this article about Bill Gates, and I used ChatGPT, and do you know what? It didn't want to write it. Because I was criticizing Gates. So I changed AI model to Grok that is built by Elon Musk. And that model loved it because Elon Musk doesn't like Bill Gates. Do you understand what kind of crazy world we're living in where we have those big models deciding on what you are allowed to think? Not. That's really dangerous.
That's really dangerous. Okay. You want to make a point about something else, Sandrine?
I did. I wanted to build some of the points actually that Igmar made. One of them is the systems are rigged, and actually the Club of Rome is saying that forever. We're seeing actually this COP could be the first COP, as Danny said, demonstrates that tension between the first part of the population, wealthiest. The fact that 1% wealthiest of the world are the ones that create problems, and the 1% wealthiest in countries that actually at 1.5 degrees, we will lose upwards of 3% of GDP per annum. And at 3 degrees could lose upwards of 17% of GDP. And we also know that we are at the first year where actually human development is go backwards. It's interesting that this COP, led by Lula, and even though I agree, he is drilling at a time when it's indicating that he wants to preserve the forest, he also was the G20 president. And he clearly indicated at G20, we needed to look at new indicators beyond GDP, that we needed to address growth differently. We can get from this is to reveal some of these very clear binary approaches that we have and try to unpack them. We talked about oil. How do we to look at that double bind? We've been working with the UNFCCC and others to see if we bring oil companies and countries together to start to really unpack what does look like. How do we keep oil in the ground? No one has had that real conversation. Is it that we have to pay them off? Is it that we have to just continue with trying to see if we tax windfall profits? Are there different taxation policies that we need? Those conversations, the really difficult ones, we need to have. And we need to have them here, but we need to have them elsewhere. And I think that's also what's so important about this COP. The 2 weeks before in Rio and also in Sao Paulo were a way of preparing for the COP in bringing together finance sector, entrepreneurs, but also local authorities. Last point, sorry to bring this up, but it's really important. We keep on hoping that nation states are going to solve this crisis. And I think one thing that we're seeing more and more, and that's the B of the Mutiao process, which also Lula has said and put in place, it's going to be about communities. It's going to be about people standing up and saying, we believe in science. It's going to be about people voting and going and saying, we don't want the government that's going to continue to drill. We cannot just count our governments right now. There are many governments that are moving backwards, but we have to remember they're in place also because we voted them in. And so I think that this is also, as I said, the COP of truth. It's also the people's COP. And we need to come back to assuming responsibility, all of us, for also making sure that our leaders are accountable and stand up for what we should be getting, which is a COP that delivers so that we can live within 1.5 to 2 degrees, because sadly, we're already at 1.5.
So thank you. And there's so many questions that come to my mind, but we don't have time. But I'm looking at Danny and looking at Claudio, right? Does one of the arguments always for the whole oil drilling business was, well, these are going to become stranded assets. It takes 10 years or 15 years to develop these wells, and then they're going to be stranded assets and the country's going to lose money. Has nobody told Lula that? Or is it because the world doesn't believe this? We all believe it, but are we just caught in the system?
I'm going to quote something that a German diplomat that I know heard once when he was told there was a massive coal expansion project going on in Germany. And he went to the CEO of the company and said, are you out of your mind? This is going to become stranded, etc. And the CEO told him, we're counting on you to fail. So maybe those oil companies all around the world are counting on 1.5 to 2 degrees to fail. Maybe they have a 2.5 world or whatever already in their books. I don't know. Or maybe this is my non-economic and non-scientific take on some of those expansion projects going on around the world. They're doing that for increasing their market value and not just because they are counting on selling the oil.
Yeah.
But this is just a
market value because the share price goes up and everybody gets rich.
I think that I agree with Claudio, but I think there is a fight for the last drop of oil in the world, and I think that this place we are seeing some principles of who has to take the lead and who has to come. I think this is a fight because Guyana, which is a very poor country, has just found oil in front of it.
Yeah.
And why they have to give up if there is another opportunity?
Yeah.
This is not what I hope. This is not what I believe, but I see this discussion in front of me. What I want to say, if I may, is that I'm covering COP since many times. And the first time, the first time was in Rio in 92. So I saw, so for Brazilians, this COP is very important. Also, it's symbolic. And to push for something, maybe for the roadmap, which will be an historical thing. But what makes me more optimist is that in the first COP in Poznan, there was only one company, one sectors of the business, and it was the finance sector, the insurance sector, because they realized that it's a matter of life for them. And now I just came from listening to a Nobel Prize, Esther Duflo, the French Nobel Prize that is in MIT, and she was bringing a new proposal, a new economical proposal to the world to help the most vulnerable. So this, this
is a change of mind. This is a change of mindset.
Thinking about it.
Yeah.
And there are 3,000 indigenous people here, and there are many young people that are pointing to my generation and saying, you have to do something.
Yeah.
So this put me in some.
No, maybe there's another angle to this as well, which is about why is there so much different information right now? And you've mentioned this before, and so have I. Isn't it because we're winning? Isn't it because we're winning?
Yeah, it's all in some ways it's like the death throes of the fossil fuel industry, right? Because they know that it's a losing battle and they're clinging on with every sort of shred of power to try and make sure that they can make as much money as they can from the sort of last bit of the industry, like the last days of Rome, right? I think
to say that actually we have to remember windfall profits are 2.8 billion per day globally for fossil fuel companies, okay? And so I fully agree with Isabella, and I also agree with Danny. This is the companies are holding on to the money with their last breath for shareholder values, exactly as was said.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is we also know how we can start to transition. And now we also see that the AI revolution is driving every possible brown molecule, which is also why the United States is backing up.
Sandrine, that's good. Richard, poor old Richard in London, right? Richard, you can't even hear fight for your corner. I have to fight for you. Richard, briefly, when those numbers, 50% GDP loss, worst case scenario, if we just carry on, what was the response from the markets or the financial sector? Didn't people say we have to do something?
Well, no, it's quite shocking, Nick. I mean, they're not doing enough, basically. We've done a lot of work on this. When you've got pension funds, we're saying that a 4-degree world will have only a minimal effect on their portfolio valuations. There's something going wrong there, isn't there? And 2 points I'll make briefly about this as to get financial institutions to wake up. One, the quality of the advice going to financial institutions is not good enough. It's not in line with the science, which you've all been talking about there. That has really got to improve. And it often comes from financial intermediaries who are not expert in this area. And second, financial policy makers and regulators, the finance ministries and so on, they aren't taking climate risk seriously enough. The central banks, they can do so much more. Stress testing, improving fiduciary duty, the responsibility for the financial institutions here. To show that, to demonstrate they really are getting this in terms of the implications for financial stability.
Okay, Richard, thank you. Where is Mark Carney when you need him? Yeah. Anyway. Okay, I know. All right. But at least we're all having a good laugh right now. We might also have some fun at the COP as well as deal with the noise. Ingmar, I know you want to say something. You've got 1 minute, 4 seconds quickly.
Very quick. I would like to express that, there's so much schizophrenic in the world. Leaders that are, pushing for deforestation, stop deforestation, also saying that we need to end fossil fuel, that Lula actually said yesterday. And they're sometimes doing the opposite, sometimes they're doing it, but too slow, etc. And this is the reality. And what I want to give is the ambition to have the COP of truth. That can be a complete failure. It's a big risk, but it can also be a big success. And I believe that this COP will be a success, even if it ends with a total failure, because of this truth. We will get the truth out that even if we fail, that will have an impact. Without Copenhagen, there would not have been in Paris. But I hope for a Paris. And I want to thank the presidency for having the courage to be criticized like this in a free country, in a democracy. And I like that.
The biggest pieces of disinformation to the average person on this planet is how much it will actually cost to actually deal with climate change.
Agreed.
In the UK, people thought it was 30% of GDP. And then when they were told it was £1.50 a week per person, that's less than a pint of beer a month. Everyone said, let's do it.
And it's less than the cost of inaction. And I think that's really important. We've just come out with a report with Carlos Nobre and other scientists and economists here in Brazil to say that actually Brazil can transition very easily. So New Earth for All report, it's going to be launched actually in 2 days. And the key call is the cost of inaction is higher than the cost of action. Brazil can actually eradicate poverty, inequality, and decarbonize if it puts in place the right solutions.
Good. So we're going to have to end on that happy note where all the lambs are dancing and the petals are falling and the soft music. We've solved all the problems. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Danny, Sandrine, Claudio, Isobel, Ingmar, and Richard in London. And hope you stay tuned in, viewers, for more exciting shows. Thank you very much indeed.